Hey guys, welcome back to Rossoneri TV. I'm Gio and I'm here for an AC Milan news recap. Of course, the weekly recaps here on the channel in which we discuss the latest news and rumors currently going on at the club in terms of transfers. Now, we already spoke in the past few weeks about the first real approach to a player, and that was about Musacchio. But earlier this week, the first real signings for the new ownership were announced, even though we are still waiting for the official confirmations, in which should arrive in the next weeks to come. But a done deal was announced for two players by different sources, very reliable sources, and that is for Ricardo Rodriguez and Kessie. So first of all, we'll be speaking about Ricardo Rodriguez, which I've already mentioned about him last week. The Wolfsburg player is set to join Milan for 15 point plus 3 million euros on bonuses. So quite an understandable price tag, I have to say, for the left back at which is set to join Milan. And I was already discussing about this with you guys last week. I was inquiring about this player because I didn't know much about him, and a lot of you were telling me that this guy is a very good fullback, one of the best in the Bundesliga after Alaba. So I was pretty excited with these news, and I'm sure a lot of you guys were excited as well. Let me know, per usual, in the comment section what you guys think about Ricardo Rodriguez and what do you think about all these names that we have been linked to. Now, in terms of contract, Ricardo Rodriguez is set to sign a 4-year deal according to reports, and Milan should be meeting with his representatives next week in Germany to finalize this deal. So we should be waiting at least till next week to know if it's official. Also, the other player I wanted to speak about is Kessie from Atalanta. This is probably the biggest of the two signings, as expected. But this signing was confirmed by Di Marzio earlier this week, and he said that Kessie to Milan is a done deal, and Milan will be paying 28 million euros, including bonuses to Atalanta for the player. And of course, there was competition between Milan and other teams. Roma were also interested in him, but unfortunately, the offer that was given to Atalanta wasn't good enough. So Milan won the race, and also Kessie, the player himself, preferred to join Milan instead of Roma. So that's already a very good sign. And he will be signing a 5-year deal worth 2.5 million euros per year. Of course, we still do not know when the official signature will be made. Our guess is that it will possibly be made once the season ends, the Serie A season ends. So in about 2 weeks, everything should be confirmed, and we should welcome these two players, both Ricardo Rodriguez and Franck Kessie, to Milan. And of course, like I said before, you guys are probably saying, what about Musacchio? I've already spoken about Musacchio in the past few weeks, and I've said it that he will be joining as well. So Milan is working fast. Fassone mentioned earlier this week in a press conference that he wants to have already 2/3 of the squad completed and finalized by the beginning of July, so that the team will be able to gel up until the season starts. And of course, it's very important that Milan, or any team in general, start the new season or the preseason in general with already a good core of the players that will take part in it. Because let's be honest, if we do get players later on in the summer, like we have seen in the past few years, in August or at the end of August when the season has already started, it's obviously harder for these players to gel in, and you want them to sort of build some chemistry with each other already from the start of the summer. So it is important that we do finalize these signings as soon as possible, especially since there's a very good chance that we will be playing in the preliminaries of the Europa League at the end of July. Now, moving on to the next player I want to speak about, Andrea Conti, another player from Atalanta, in which Milan is expected to go after, especially given the fact that they're already in talks with Kessie, and well, the deal has been finalized, but you know, maybe Milan could build something else with the relationship that they currently have with Atalanta, and they're really looking at an alternative in that right back role. Of course, Abate is set to stay at Milan for next season, but Milan want a better alternative, a guy that, you know, is young and could give some guarantees to the club. And I think Andrea Conti is exactly that type of man that they're looking for. He's 23 years old at the moment, and he really was a key player for Atalanta this season, as he scored 8 goals. And 8 goals as a right back, to me, is really a lot of goals. Yes, he could also play as a right midfielder, so I guess that gives him an edge to his position. But it's still a lot of goals for a 23-year-old in that position, you know, where his primary role is a right back. So very excited by these rumors. Of course, there's no real talk ongoing for Conti just yet, but there is a lot of interest from other clubs around Europe, and is the man, at least he's expected to go for around 20 million, if not even more. Some people might say that's a lot, but then again, we paid 20 million for Bertolacci and he was a complete flop, and I would probably invest that money in someone that is good for the future, that could score goals and could defend well. And that, guys, is obviously Andrea Conti. We saw him last week when we played against him. He had a very good performance. He loves to get into attacking positions, and overall, I think he would be a very exciting player to see at Milan. Finally, I want to speak about our forward options. Of course, like I said before regarding Ricardo Rodriguez, Milan will be going in Germany to wrap up that deal, and they will also be talking with Wolfsburg regarding Luis Gustavo, another name that Milan is obviously linked to, but they would prefer Fabregas instead if they could get a chance to get him. Now, speaking about Aubameyang, of course, since they're going to Germany, there's a very good chance that they will be speaking with his representatives. They have already spoken with Aubameyang's representative these past few days, and it seems to be that Dortmund wants at least 70 million euros for Aubameyang, which is a really hefty price tag. But what's more crazy is the player's wages, and apparently, you know, he's going around 12 million euros per year on wages, which is really a lot of money, which I'm pretty sure the player's agent and the player himself will have to lower eventually, because not many clubs around Europe are willing to pay 12 million euros on wages. And Aubameyang has already expressed his preferences. He said that he doesn't want to go play for Real Madrid or Barcelona. PSG also doesn't seem to be an option for him, and I don't think he wants to join any Premier League clubs from what I remember. So really his options are getting narrow and narrower, so I don't think there's really anything else that Aubameyang and his agent could do rather than just lower his wages, the wages that he's demanding, because not many teams around the world could be paying those wages unless he's willing to go to China, which is probably not an option for him given the fact that he's still doing very well in the Bundesliga. So I don't think he would want to go to China just for the money. But that is what we know about Aubameyang at the moment. It still seems like an impossible task to get him. Of course, the priority for the attacking department is Morata, the alternative being Kalinic. But there's obviously this talk regarding Aubameyang still ongoing, and up until Milan expressed that Aubameyang is just an option that they cannot go for, then we should still believe that it is possible. And the fact that they have started negotiations and they're pushing to know more information regarding the player's intentions and the agent's intentions is already a good sign going forward. So we must wait and be patient to see exactly what happens in these next few weeks. So that pretty much wraps up the talks regarding the latest news and rumors that I wanted to cover. Like I said, nothing is yet official for those first signings, but they have been announced, they have been reported by major sources, very reliable sources. So we should be pretty happy about this, because they're more than likely to happen. Like I said, until the official communication is written, we cannot be 100% sure, but there's a very high chance that these players will become Milan players in just a few weeks' time. Now let me know your thoughts about these players or any other players in general that you want me to talk about in the comment section below. For those of you that are wondering regarding the Milan-Bologna match preview, that will be done in a couple of hours on the channel, so there will be 2 videos out on Rossoneri TV today, so make sure to stay tuned for those. So let's get into your comments. Let's see what you guys have to say regarding these players. Volcano Game says, what about Milan Bade? A very good question, actually, because I didn't really mention anything about him. Milan are still linked to him, even though he's not a priority at the moment. Like I said before, the main priority for the midfield is Fabregas. The other names that they are considering is Luis Gustavo and Bade, but I think those are more alternatives to Fabregas at the moment, at least in terms of priority. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens, first of all, with Fabregas, if they're capable of getting him, and if not, they're going to have to shift their focus to one of these 2 players. So Bade may be the easier option, I guess you could say, for the alternatives, since he wants to leave Fiorentina, and Milan have already initiated talks with Bade since the previous transfer windows. So we have to wait and see exactly what happens there. Moving on, some more questions. Theo says, on the scale of 1 to 10, where do you see Aubameyang signing with us? At the moment, that number cannot be too high. I would probably say a 5, possibly max a 6. Just because his wages are the main problem at the moment. I think that Milan could even spend around 60 to 70 million for Aubameyang. But the thing is, his wages are very frightening at the moment, at least for Milan. And it's either they lower them or the deal won't happen. And by lowering, I don't mean by just 2 million euros. I think they need to take a pretty good cut, and I would have to say they would have to go down to maybe 7 to 8 million. Other than that, if you take a look at the transfer budget that Milan has, which is about 140 million, and we consider the purchases that Milan will most likely make with Kessie, 28 million, and Ricardo Rodriguez for another 15 million, plus the 3 million on bonuses, that's already about 40 million, maybe a bit more, 43, something around there. And that's already 43 million out of a possible 140 spent, that could be spent. Then with Aubameyang, that will be another 70 million. So we'll only have about 30 million left, 35 million left, which is probably good for another 1 player or max 2 players. I'm not expecting Milan to make 7 to 8 signings this transfer window in the summer. And I'm probably looking around 4 to 5 signings, solid signings, maybe 6. But my point here is that spending 70 million on 1 player alone, you better be sure that he brings the guarantees, because it's not like we have an unlimited transfer budget. We still have a limited budget, which is higher than previous years. But the money must be allocated correctly. And let's not forget about Musacchio as well. So, I don't see the transfer for Aubameyang happening at the moment. It could still happen, but the chance of it is probably 5 on 10 at the moment. Zanaki says, so what about Keita Balde? He's another player that Milan has really been linked to. And I've already mentioned this for the previous weeks. Not only then, but also back in January when I said that he's more of a possibility to join us in the summer. Well, Juventus have also been linked to him, and according to the recent reports, there haven't really been any official communication or official contacts with Keita Balde's agent and Lazio just yet, from what I read. So, Keita Balde could become an option for Milan, especially if Suso leaves, which is still in the talks, because Suso still hasn't renewed his contract. So there's still the possibility that Suso might not be a Milan player next season, which in my eyes I think it's quite improbable, but there is the chance that that happens. So we'll have to see, based on a few things, what happens. But Keita Balde is still a name that is in the talks. It's still a name that's in the talks, but I don't think there has been any official contact regarding him just yet. I want to know more about Modric. I heard rumors about him to Milan. Probably those rumors haven't come from reliable sources. Please state your source regarding those rumors, but I really haven't read anything regarding Modric coming to Milan. And honestly, if it's been rumored, it's probably not coming from a reliable source. I could almost guarantee you that. Gasul says, I think they're really managing the budget well. There were news saying that Kessie might come on a 2-year loan with an obligation to buy when he plays his first match in 2018. I haven't read about those loan rumors, to be honest. All I've read was about the straight signing. But that's very interesting if that is an option for Kessie. To be honest with you, I don't think that Atalanta would be willing to give Kessie to Milan on a 2-year loan at the moment, because chances are, why would they want to give one of their best players away just on loan at the moment and wait until next year or in 2 years to get the money that they deserve for him? I don't think it's very probable, this thing, and more than likely, Milan will have to pay him outright. They will have to pay Atalanta the money that they're asking for, that they're demanding. Niker says Pasalic wants to stay, but will Milan have place for him next season? And that's exactly what I was mentioning last week regarding Pasalic. He might be a player that Montella wants. Montella has repeated this over and over again in the past weeks, that he's a player that he would like to keep at Milan, that could be a good player for the future of the project. But simply, I don't know how much playing time Pasalic could be getting with the addition of all these players next season. Let's not forget also the return of Bonaventura, which should be slotted back in the midfield there on the left side. So I really don't see Pasalic getting much playing time in the future at Milan. He could be a very good bench option, a good alternative, especially since we will most likely play in the Europa League next season. But yeah, we have to be careful for that, because Pasalic is a player that's growing, but he also needs and is probably going to demand some playing time. So I think those are the scenarios that we should be looking out for him. Moving on, Mustafa says, my only concern is the defensive line. Do you think Musacchio will solve the problem at the back? Now, Musacchio, this is a good question, because Musacchio, it's not like I've seen much from him. I haven't really seen many games where he was playing, but I did watch highlights of him playing, and he's a solid option. Now, his pairing with Romagnoli could go a long way, and what I mean by this is that it could really go for years and years and years. It could be a very formidable partnership, in my opinion. But would it give the certainties that the defense needs at the moment? Probably not. And that's why, sometimes I would prefer to have maybe a more experienced player, a guy that has seen what it takes or has played in many European competitions, or is a veteran, but not too old. A guy that's still in his late 20s, maybe. But that could give you the certainties that you need. That could bring that experience. And I'm not really speaking about a guy like Paletta, because Paletta is decent, but he's not the world-class veteran player that we need in that defense to pair up with Romagnoli. So, yeah, I mean, it's not a gamble because I think the purchase will pay off in the long run. I think, like I said, Musacchio and Romagnoli could form a very good partnership, but I'm not too sure about how quick this partnership could, activate. That's my main concern at the moment. Walls13 says, heard anything about Donnarumma? Still nothing about Donnarumma. But I read a report that I think next week will be the start of the work for Donnarumma for the contract renewal with Raiola. And if it's not next week, it will probably be the week after, because we're already heading into June very quickly, and Donnarumma will have to get things sorted out very, very soon. Nikesh says, we need depth next season, given the fact that we will be playing in the Europa League. Midfield needs to be revamped. Kushka, Paslic should stay so that we have a good bench. And that's exactly what I was saying. Guys like Kushka and Paslic will most likely not see as much playing time as they did this year, for obvious reasons. But we should still be keeping these guys because we need depth. And I think these players would be perfect depth players to have at Milan. Players that have already been playing in Milan, players that know the situation of the club, and they know what it takes, to play at Milan, at least for Kuchka, for example. So I think these types of players would be good for the bench to come in any time whenever there's an injury or Montella needs to switch things up. These are the type of players you want on your bench. Rad says, nice haircut, bro. Thank you for that. Sebastian says, my dream AC Milan defense would be Donnarumma in net, Rodriguez as the left back, Inigo, Martinez, and Mucasio. I think you meant, and the right back, don't really know. CDM, gone once. Yeah, that's not too bad of a lineup, to be honest with you, but pretty sure that maybe 3/4 of your thing will be right. Maybe 3/4. Luciano says, what do you think? Is Deschio going and where? I think Deschio will be leaving this summer. I've already said it in the past few weeks. I think we'll definitely leave. To where? I don't know. Might be Juventus, might be somewhere else, but I think his time at Milan is done. Baradoom says, how real are these news about the transfer of players? Well, if we're talking about Ricardo Rodriguez and Kessie, these news are very real and they will happen, 99%. About the other ones, like I said, it's simply rumors. We still don't know exactly who Milan are going to land this summer. Anikat says, Gio, what about Gustavo Gomez? He's better than Zapata and he's got potential to become better. Hope he isn't sold. I'd like to see him in the lineup tomorrow over Zapata. Gustavo Gomez could be one of the players that could leave actually this summer. I think Zapata, Paletta, and Gustavo Gomez are all up for sale and they could potentially be sold. I'm not saying that they will all three get sold, but one or two of those three will be likely to get sold this summer. Gustavo Gomez, I think that he played about 10 to 12 games this season, if I'm not mistaken, and he's been decent at times, and he's been awful in other times, like the rest of the defense, to be honest with you. I still think that he has some things to prove at Milan, but I wouldn't see him as a starter. Once again, I would probably keep him as a bench player. Zapata, I don't think he has any place to stay at Milan, and I think Paletta as well should remain at Milan to become a bench player. Jind Lol says, just got here, he wants to say hi. Milan fan says, I think Milan should search talents who aren't so expensive, such as players of Lyon or Ajax. They play perfectly in semi-finals. I think what's more important is to find players that could adapt to the roles that we are missing, and not just any players in general, because that's what Milan has done in previous years. We have been signing players just for the sake of it, players that weren't even good for the positions that we wanted them to play in. They were all over the place. So I think we need to focus on positions more than anything. Which players would most likely adapt better in a certain position? That's what Milan should think in terms of signings, at least. Just a few more questions before I wrap this up. Mustafa says, I think if Deulofeu leaves this summer, Milan should bring Gomez from Atalanta together with Morata and Suso and Bonaventura. I think that will be a very good attacking line, if you ask me. Gomez is once again a player that Milan is interested in, and Gomez himself said that he thinks it's time to move to a bigger club. Where he will join, I simply don't know, but definitely it's something that's in the talks at the moment. And like I said before, with Kessie and Conti, Milan are looking at this other option as well. And Gomez is a very good option to have, very fast. He did very good things with Atalanta. And I think Atalanta, them being in 5th place this season, explains the success of these players. Now, I just hope that they're not a one-season hit wonders, like you could say. But I think that Gomez would be a very decent option to have instead of Deulofeu. And like you said, there was Suso and Bonaventura staying as well, and us getting Morata. Things could look very, very good for the attacking department. Savar says, what about Montolivo? Is he still going to be a starter? Probably not. I don't think he will. But there's a good chance that he will be staying. Like we saw yesterday when the jerseys, the new uniforms were released. We saw a picture of Montolivo with the new Milan jersey, which, by the way, we will be using in tomorrow's match for the first time. So we'll be looking at the new jerseys tomorrow for the first time. And we saw a picture of Montolivo, and oftentimes, you know, that is a great marketing tool to say that you could expect Montolivo to remain next season. But then again, Milan failed with that aspect even back then when Thiago Silva and Ibrahimovic were taking pictures of with the new jerseys, and then we all know what happened when they got sold in that summer. How old is Papu Gomez? I think he's 30 or something. He's in his late 20s, early 30s. I'm not exactly sure his age, but it's around there. The Faro says the new Milan jersey is sexy. It is. It's very, very nice jersey, and I think I'm actually going to be getting that one because it's simple, it's vintage, it's traditional, it's a classic, and I think with the modern look that it gave to it, it's amazing. I think it's way better than this year's home jersey, and I'm pretty sure we'll be going for that one this summer. Alright guys, that's gonna wrap it up for this AC Milan transfer recap. Like I said a couple of weeks ago, just to give you guys a fresh reminder, I will be giving you guys this weekly recaps once a week until the end of May. Once June starts and the transfer news start, escalating, or there's more news in general, I will be making multiple videos per week to keep you guys updated with all of that. And of course, in July, we'll be thinking even more videos. But thank you guys for joining me. Don't forget, in about an hour and a half from now, I will be holding the match preview for the Milan-Bologna match, which will be played tomorrow. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Don't forget to subscribe to Rossoneri TV to stay updated with everything going on at AC Milan. And I'll catch you guys soon for another video. This has been Gio signing off. And as always, Forza Milan.